In sales, we talk a lot about executive meetings, but we barely stop and ask a more uncomfortable questions. How many of those create value? How many of those mean something for the audience? And research shows that most first sales meetings between executive buyers and sellers don't lead anywhere meaningful. Executives are overwhelmed with requests. Many of these conversations they accept just turn into generic discovery questions or generic conversation with little or no real value at all. So the problem isn't just getting the meeting. The problem is earning time with the right people and making it worth their attention. And that's exactly the reason why I reached out to Andrew Kaufmann to understand how he's working and worked to solve these problems. Hi, Andrew, and welcome on the show.
Tobias, thank you for the opportunity. Great to have this conversation with you.
Andrew, before we start, just a little bit of an introduction of yourself, your experience, and then I have a few questions to ask you.
Okay. So my career started many years ago in the United States, as you can tell by my subtle accent. I'm from America. I've lived in the UK for about 16 years now, but started my career in the US on trading floors. In sales and foreign exchange market making and that type of a career before pivoting into the fintech sales space, and did that for many years, right? Mostly selling into the asset management vertical, but into the banking vertical as well. Software solutions, service solutions, a good variety and a good mix that allowed me to understand, from a front and a middle and a back office perspective, what was important. And then about 3 years ago, I had an epiphany, and I pivoted again at the ripe young age of 60 to be able to create something that would actually help salespeople address one of the biggest pain points that I have, which you highlighted in your introduction, right? Not only the quality of the meeting, but getting the meeting itself.
Thanks for the summary, for the introduction. And this is what's interesting about your profile, and what interested me, what piqued my attention, is that you didn't come at entrepreneurship, building your own thing, by accident, but after years of like years and years of sales experience. Okay, so I just want to know, what was the specific frustration you lived repeatedly that made you build time to give network, and what is time to give network?
Perfect. So there's two answers to that question. One is, why did I build Time to Give Network as a not-for-profit, right? And that's a big part of our USP, right? So here in the UK, they have a structure called a community interest company. And that means that we can't pay dividends. There is no equity. There is no exit. We donate all excess revenue that we generate over and above operating expenses to charity. And the reason why I focused on that was because I spent my whole life being commercial and I never felt like I gave back enough. And I didn't want that I made the post-trade process more efficient on my tombstone. I really thought, hey, I can make a difference here, and there's a bit of a legacy play for me. So while almost all ventures are commercial in nature and to enrich the founder and others, we've decided to do this altruistically. And part of it's strategic because I don't think anybody can compete with us if they want to move into our space. Like, why would you do it with a for-profit company if the user experience with a not-for-profit company is going to be at least as good? So we really wanted to own this unique idea and this unique positioning. And so it just ticked a lot of boxes for me personally and professionally to do this as a not-for-profit altruistic venture. The deliverable of this not-for-profit venture is a technology platform. And the technology platform solves one of the biggest problems I faced, which was access, right? I had the luxury of working for big companies, and I also worked for small companies with big brands, with big marketing departments that helped with lead generation. And I worked with smaller companies where I had to hunt and farm and do everything in between, right? Relationship management and all of it. And when you work for a smaller company, it's a bigger challenge to get in front of the people you want to meet. And even at a big company, there's still going to be a subset of those individuals and a subset of those firms that you are going to just struggle to gain access to. So what do? Right? You can try cold emailing and cold calling, and you can try networking as well, which is a great way to do it, but it's time consuming and you're burning favors and it doesn't always work. And even if you do get that meeting, a lot of times they're just doing it as a favor for your common relationship and just giving you a half-hour Zoom call, and that is soon forgotten and dismissed. And I wanted meetings to be impactful, and I wanted meetings to be purposeful, and I wanted meetings to be memorable. But how do you do that, right? How do you secure that? So Time to Give Network was actually inspired by Warren Buffett, who famously for 10 years auctioned a lunch on eBay. And he raised over $50 million for a charity called Glide. His last lunch went for $17 million. And I was like, well, every in-demand executive, or every in-demand person for that matter, there's intrinsic value in their time. And I always liked eBay. I used to use eBay after I was done trading. That was where I got my action, I guess, right? And I just love how eBay allows access to something to a broad audience, and allows it, again, to realize its intrinsic value, or at least come closer. So I was like, well, if I productize the Warren Buffett model, if I put controls on the Warren Buffett model, and I let any in-demand executive, whether they're a subject matter expert, whether they're a budget holder, whether they are just someone that people want to get in front of for any reason, if I offer them the means to offer that access in the form of a meeting in return for a donation to their charity of choice, well, now we have something, right? Now we have a means for everybody to be able to raise money for a charity near and dear to their heart. Find an hour a month, or 2 hours a month, or as much as you want, or an hour a quarter, or an hour once. We don't care. Just sign up for free and make yourself available to somebody who is especially keen to meet with you in return for a donation to your charity of choice in the amount of your choosing. So think about it more like a buy it now model versus an auction. We can do auctions, but most of the time we're just doing buy it now because it's easier and cleaner. So we now have no shortage of C-level executives are up there and making themselves available for anywhere from £100 to £1,000, with the vast majority being under £500 in order to offer a compelling ROI. And then the other side of the equation looks at it and says, wow, for a £200 donation to charity, I can get an hour face to face with this executive. That seems almost too good to be true, especially as a sales guy who gets to expense that £200 and rock up looking like a hero and spending the first 10 minutes talking about, hey, why'd you pick that charity and all that good stuff, and really establishing a meaningful relationship. The other reason why that relationship is meaningful is because, as opposed to the Warren Buffett model, which I never understood how Berkshire Hathaway was okay with him just meeting anybody. There was no rails, there was no controls, and we're largely right now, at least, focused on the financial services sector, which has a lot of controls and a lot of compliance issues. So we built in a double opt-in model to protect everybody. So now whoever offers their time, known as time givers on the platform, whoever offers their time can clearly state what they can and cannot talk about, what they will and will not talk about, or they just leave it open to whomever has interest in their time. On the other side, those who seek access, they have saved searches, just like eBay, right? So I want to, anytime a COO of a hedge fund comes up, I want to know about it, right? Or anytime a CEO in pharmaceuticals comes up, I want to know about it, right? So when those time givers put their offer up there, I'm alerted via email that a new individual has triggered a saved search. I click on that link, I go in and I look, and I'm like, wow, £300 to get in front of the chief technology officer of this large insurance company. Well, that's a great ROI. So what happens then is they send them via the platform an indication of interest. So that's a note, and it says, hey, I'd like to meet with you and talk about this or learn about that or whatever it is. And that person can see your note and that person sees your profile. And then they can say, you know what? I don't want to waste your time, or I have a compliance issue, right? Thanks, but no thanks, which also protects the buyer, which is also known as a time bidder on our platform. So it protects them from making a donation to somebody who never had any interest in talking to them. And it saves that person who is offering their time from having to waste time. So it really makes sure that everybody's aligned. Once the time giver accepts that indication of interest, the time bidder is then able to make the donation in return for that meeting. So we have an API connection to Just Giving, which has here in the UK over 27,000 charities. So the time giver can choose any one of 27,000 charities. The time bidder is quite happy to make a donation to that charity via Just Giving. Once that donation is made, then Time to Give Network is alerted. Once Time to Give Network is alerted, we then do an information exchange. So the time bidder gets the time giver's information, the time giver gets the time bidder's information via email. They are then go off and set the day and the time and the location of that meeting, if that hasn't been already defined by the time giver. And then the time bidder can also ask questions in advance, or they can set an agenda, because I want that meeting to be as impactful as possible and everybody to be aligned and everybody to be prepared. And that 1 hour is spent as productively as possible, right? A lot of times it's just, hey, I just want to get to meet you and know you and understand you. And how can I, as a salesperson, add value, whether it's from my company or somebody else, to establish a relationship that then grows to wherever it grows. And because there's a value exchange, time givers are stuck in, right? They care. They're willing to make a referral. They know that you're trying to do things differently, and they respect that, and they are more inclined than they ever would to do as much as they can, even if it's for a couple £100. And that's what we found. So that's the long answer to your short
No, and
question.
thank you so much, because we just let's say put together two questions in one, and I am honestly really, like, I was really impressed about your company when I started researching about, because that is a clever way to create value on both sides to solve a big issue. But now let's go back to the big issue, and then, because I think that your knowledge of the big issue made you come up also with this idea. And
Mm,
the problem, let's talk about it loudly. Today, it's really hard to get executive access in general, which is worth
yes.
something. And even when you got the meeting, as you said, it's a 30-minute Zoom call or with no value at all. I want to know from you why, based on your experience, work experience, or the experience you're having with your company, why this meeting time has become so like scarce, and why have the first meetings lost any leverage?
So again, talking my book a bit, the first meeting in this case has a lot of leverage because everybody's on the same page. Most of the times you go into a meeting and it's unstructured and it is completely exploratory, and it's short, and it's too short. Half hour is just not enough to establish any sort of a meaningful relationship. And I would argue that face to face, I couldn't even add the multiples of impact from face to face versus Zoom. The ability to shake somebody's hand, the ability to just have it's a completely different vibe. And that's really hard. Now, that's really hard mostly, largely because a lot of people just work from home, right? And you're not going to go to their house. Although it's not a bad play to offer to buy them a cup of coffee near their house, I would say, if they're working from home, depending on how motivated you are. But the reduced amount of time in the office, and just people, I think, are doing things differently. If they have a need, then they'll talk to their friends, or they'll talk to their WhatsApp groups, or they'll talk to consultants, or whatever it is. If they have a need, they're not they're already making their decisions based on other people's recommendations to a large degree, and their influence is going to be large, and they're going to go into any meeting with preconceived notions, which also hurts a salesperson, unless, of course, the salesperson happens to be working for the company that got rave reviews from their best mate, right? So, that dynamic has changed a lot. I don't think people prioritize looking at what is out there for things that are not an immediate priority. I don't think they're spending as much time. I think that they're doing their company a disservice by not understanding the competitive landscape of everything that touches their industry. I think personally they're poorly served because it's worth networking. Think about if you lose your job, it's good to know a sales guy who knows all of the people in that space, right? They can be your friend, but they don't think about it like that. They're just very BAU, most people, and not looking at things that might not be of interest to them, which makes it a non-starter no matter how compelling your cold email is. They're just not dedicating time to that. And again, talking my book, this model is, hey, I'm willing to set aside a couple hours a month to learn about something that might be tangential, right? We don't have an AI budget, but yet I should probably be talking with AI with some of these vendors who want to tell me about their AI powered thing. So I can set aside some time. I'm well served from networking. I'm well served because I learn. My company's well served because I learn. And I'm just going to make a conscious effort to do that. And because of the value exchange, I think that makes it a lot easier to do that versus on their own volition thinking, okay, well, I should probably do more networking or learn more about stuff, even if it's not immediate priority. So I think that's where that's a big part of the core of the problem, I think.
Thanks for the answer. And I think that you talk a lot about value exchange, which is the backbone of your company. When I was researching your company, I thought, okay, if this company exists for several reasons, noble purposes, solves a problem, but the problem has been made bigger by ourselves, salespeople, not being able to create and provide enough value in the first meetings, okay? So based on your experience and your, possibility to look inside an organization where you provide this value exchange, what are the top reasons why executives just don't want to have meetings with salespeople? And what are the reasons why they want to have meetings with salespeople through your platform?
Well, the reason why they would have 6 meetings through the platform would be because they have a lot of control over which meetings they take, right? They don't necessarily know from that cold outreach what that meeting is going to be about. They, and to be honest, a lot of them don't even see those meeting requests, right? They don't even look. Like, even now, it's funny, not to digress, but as a salesperson, I got very little unsolicited interest in my time. As a CEO, even of a fledgling not-for-profit, I get more love than I ever could have experienced, right? And there's so many people that want to help me build my pipeline. There's so many people want to help me with my tech stack. Oh my God, right? And I'm like, I have no interest. I don't even want to open the door to these people, much less have any interest. And I'm just getting inundated. And I think the advent of AI and all of these tools to just jam people's inboxes, they just become number and number and number and just don't even, respond. I know people that don't respond to LinkedIn chats because like their LinkedIn chats are just so full of, especially InMail too. I get a lot of InMail and a lot of really bold email too. It's funny now to be able to see the spectrum of how different salespeople, do it. Because nobody ever sold to me. I was just some bag carrying sales guy minding my own business, right? So that aspect of it, I think people, they're just averse to open the door because there's just so many people on the other side of that door. And there's, right, where do you draw the line? And that's actually one of the things from this platform that we're seeing as far as like what 6 meetings you might take. So, because here's an interesting twist. I'm a sales guy. I'm a budget holder, and I'm getting a whole bunch of unsolicited interest in my time, and I ignore most of it. And some of those salespeople look like they're trying, right? They're customizing it, and it just feels maybe like it's not AI, or they've done their research, and they're trying, but it's just not really a fit. And I just can't find the time for that guy now. And then becomes never, because that guy will eventually give up after a while, right? And that cycle repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. So now what we're seeing some people do, which I would very much encourage people to do, in my own completely biased opinion, is these time givers, now they're going back to a subset of those unsolicited queries and saying, hey, I'm super busy, but I make myself available for an hour a month on the Time to Give network. So if you want to meet with me, go over there. And this allows them to separate the wheat from the chaff. This allows them to give those salespeople a chance that they otherwise didn't have. Because if I was a salesperson, I got that note, I would go to my boss and say, hey, for a couple £100, I can get in front of this guy. I've been chasing him forever. I got no other line into him. Maybe we can do this, right? So it gives me a chance. It gives him the opportunity to be fair and give level the playing field and show who's willing to be serious and who's not, because most are not. Most have not done their research. And if they feel like there's a compelling ROI, well, happy days. So, and it also cleans out their inbox, because those people can't keep coming back because they've been given their marching orders. So it's not always great news for a sales guy who has no budget, but at least for those that tactically can do it, that would be great. So, and then why people do take a meeting, the only time they take a meeting is if they have a need that they're looking to fill. So it's exactly either an exact solution or something at least close and tangential, like it might fit, or they have the right messaging where it's worth taking a look. Or, like I said, a lot of times people take meetings because maybe like the head of operations has someone in the IT department who's coming over to his desk and saying, hey, I got this buddy. Can you take a meeting with him? And they're reluctant to take those meetings because they're reluctant to open the door, because they know how salespeople are, and they don't like telling them to get lost. At least here in the UK. In the US, they're quite happy to tell them to get lost. But here in the UK, they're a little more polite. They'll just ghost, which is even less polite and less efficient. And then I keep chasing and wasting my time when he has no, just tell me to go away. But they don't. That's a whole nother separate conversation we can have another time.
Absolutely. Whenever you want. No, but I think that, as you said, you give the ability to executives to have control on their agenda. The problem we have now with outreach in general, okay? Now we can change messaging, we can call and whatsoever, is that in a way or another, it seems that an exec accepts a call and is forced to accept it by either a follow-up, a push, or whatever. And now that we can do pretty much everything by ourselves, buyers can research before meeting a salesperson for 80+% of their time. Means that they have control of everything. They can buy whatever they want on their phone. So they have control on their life. Why should they not have control on the meetings that they accept? Why should they be forced into that? I think that was the main value that I got out of out of the research I had and I made for this conversation. I have one question before we go back to the problem, and I think it's better if we go in that direction. Your company's in UK. Are you thinking about expanding somewhere? And what kind of countries you see as the most fit for the solution, and how you provide this double value?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks. I mean, obviously, because I'm here in the UK and because of this unique corporate structure, this community interest company structure, which locks us into this, whiter than white, beyond reproach, non-commercial model, it suits us well. So the way this model works is that we have an API connection to Just Giving. And again, anyone here in the UK can pick any one of 27,000 UK-based charities. Where I think this thing really grows exponentially is in the US. It's just a very American model, right? The attitude towards philanthropy, the attitude towards new things, the attitude towards because we do a lot of influencer marketing. So like our time givers, we like to post and say, hey, how did I come to meet them, and what do they have to offer, and what charity are they choosing? And then they can stick their, we do a LinkedIn post, and then they can repost with some kind comments to not only raise awareness of the fact that they're trying to give back, but also raise awareness of a charity that's near and dear to their heart. So that's a bit more of an American thing, and the market's just bigger. So we're very excited about America. The only thing holding us back from moving to America was that we didn't have the platform originally built as multi-currency, and now we've built it as multi-currency. And the only other piece is the API to Just Giving. So right now, again, 27,000 charities in the UK we support. When we moved to the US on day one, we had 1.4 million charities that we support, which is fantastic. The only thing from me going to Italy or to Spain or to Singapore is just an API connection to a local charity network, charity payments network, that would allow those in that country to pick a local charity. Right now, we have people from all over the world that are choosing UK-based charities, like maybe they like Cancer Care, right? But they're going to pick Cancer Care UK because that's the only one we support today, and they want to be a part of this, and that's fine. Cancer Care UK, Cancer Care US, it doesn't bother them really much either way. But that is really the only thing limiting as far as global domination. And additionally, this model is universal on both sides, right? Because while it's great for these executives, right? And again, I love talking to budget holders. I love talking to influencers, or I love talking to consultants because I want to be on the top of mind of consultant. If we have a nice report, well, that's always good for us too, right? Let's not just talk about getting into the people that ultimately hold the budget. Let's talk about the influencers and the networkers and all those other people that are worth getting in front of. But this also works for Taylor Swift. I would love to have Taylor Swift auction off a half-hour Zoom call and have some, billionaire's Swiftie daughter, right, who wants to get in a half-hour Zoom call with Tay-Tay, and her dad is happy to donate $300,000 to charity to make it happen. Oh, that would make me feel great. So it's really anybody who seeks access for any reason, and anybody who's in demand for any reason, and just bringing them together. But obviously, in these early days, the clearest case to be made is, okay, well, what's the ROI, right? What's going to make it worth the spend, and what's going to be making it worth the spend? And literally today, I got off the phone with a sales guy from a compliance software company who told me that he literally just closed a deal last week, which was great, because a lot of times it's going to take a while. But we now have a case where he actually closed a deal as a result of an introduction to a consultant who was consulting for one company, but then he was consulting for a second company and brought him in to that second company. That meeting happened because that consultant knew that this asset management firm was moving from one vendor to potentially another vendor. And my contact wasn't even in the mix. So, but the consultant went in and helped that asset manager with a bit of due diligence, brought our time bidder in, and he ended up being the best solution, and he ended up getting the deal. And that story, as a sales guy, brings a tear to my eye because it's just so beautiful.
It is, and that's a fair point. Let's go in this direction because I have a lot of questions about your platform. Okay, then we will go back to the problem. How are you thinking about controlling the amount of salespeople who jump on the platform and provide no value to the exec? I mean, if too many people have access to all the execs, it becomes an outreach 2.0. So what is your platform doing to avoid that the space become crowded as, I don't know, LinkedIn or whatsoever?
Yes. So there's a few things. One is from a commercial model. Maybe that's a good segue. So for time givers, it's free, right? Those executives, they join for free. Charity, free money. I don't charge them anything. Those who seek access, the time bidders, they need to pay a seat license. It's only £150 for an annual license to this a contribution to this not-for-profit cause. So this platform is not just open to, don't think about it like eBay. It's closed. So you need to pay a £150 annual license in order to be able to access the platform. The next piece of the commercial model is that, let's say some COO offers herself for £300. Well, it's £300 to the charity, and we then charge 10% on top. So it's £30 to Time to Give Network. So it's $330 all into the buyer. So that's my commercial model. Importantly, when a time bidder signs up for that £150, they have unlimited access to the platform and can send as many indications of interest as you wish. When a time giver creates an offer, think about it like eBay. They're selling a meeting. They put the meeting up there and maybe they get 3 or 4 indications of interest, right? And maybe they approve one, maybe they approve all of them. But whoever's the first to make that donation, that meeting goes away. So that time giver is not there all the time getting peppered with queries. Only when they're good and ready to offer another meeting is when they are, right? Because otherwise it would be insane. Otherwise they would get peppered with meeting requests. This is not that. This is put up a meeting, accept 1 or more indications of interest from the quick, and that's why people have saved searches, because they need to log in and make that decision quick because they don't want to necessarily miss out on, to some other time bidder. But once that meeting is purchased, it's gone. From a time bidder perspective, the other part of this, because early days, right now we have over 300 executives and we're just, we're growing, and we need to grow the firm too. If any salespeople are out there, by the way, who are looking for a job, we have a commission only plan, and you probably already know a lot of vendors and you could probably make some money. But right now we're doing it, bootstrappy, shall we say. But when I went to my first time bidders and I was like, hey, we have this platform, it's £150 contribution to a not-for-profit if you could join. And the first question is always, oh, who do you got? Right? Who do you have that I would care about? And I'm like, well, I got 14 people and you probably don't care about any of them, but hey, how about that £150? What do you think? Right? It's not exciting. So then, and now, and always, the value proposition to a time bidder is, you tell me who you want. You give me a list of all the people that you'd like to meet. Give me their contact information. Put a number next to them. That CEO, £400. That head of data strategy, £150. We then go out under this altruistic banner and will hunt on your behalf and tell them that a member of our not-for-profit community would love to learn more about your business and is happy to donate £200 as a value exchange if you could take 5 minutes and sign up. So we work to make it target rich for them. So it's a bit of a riskless trade for them, because now they're paying that $150. That's their total downside if nothing happens. But the upside is that not only are they getting meetings, but they're getting a meeting that offers a compelling ROI because they're defining the price point. They're not, paying where the person priced themselves. This person isn't even on the platform. And it helps me because now I have a standing bid and I want to cross that trade. That makes my life a lot easier if I know who wants who, right? So we bring those time givers in, and that person gets a compelling ROI on that meeting. The other thing that we're seeing is some salespeople or marketing, depending on where, the outbound communications come from. Some of these firms are reaching out via their cold emails or cold calls and saying, hey, we're part of this not-for-profit platform, right? There's a full audit trail. There's no backhanders. We've done our research and we know that we'd like to meet with you. And we know you're busy and we'd like to create a value exchange. And we've decided that rather than going to a trade show, we're going to put £10,000 in a sales / marketing / charity budget. And we're happy to distribute that. And we'd be happy to donate £300 to your charity of choice if we could learn more about your business. Now, they could still ghost you, and they would have ghosted you already, obviously. But even if they don't accept it, they think about your company in a different regard, right? There's a CSR bump, right? There's an intentionality, if that's a word, bump, where you're going out and you are coming correct, as they say in the States, right? And just doing it differently. And if they bite, again, that's great, because you're the first ones coming to them and saying, hey, we're trying to do things differently. We understand you're busy. I understand that I can't give you £300 and put it in your pocket, because that would be off-putting and bad in most cases. But this way, it's not going in their pocket. It's for their charity of choice. That all kind of works out. And it's just another arrow in the quiver of a salesperson to try to score an impactful
An
meeting.
impactful meeting. No, that makes sense. And you touched another problem. And I have a follow up question on that because you just talked about most of these kind of events or trade show being kind of meaningless for salespeople and also for executives who just go there, have a walk, see a few, like a bunch of desks, have a coffee, then come back home confused. Regarding these type of events, like I really want to know how many, if you have an idea or like kind of not even a number, but how many of these executives have found more value in having a meeting through your platform rather than going to a trade show? How much time are you saving these people?
Ah, that's a, I would say that they're not mutually exclusive. I don't think that they're going to less trade shows and taking meetings. I think they're always going to go to the trade shows that they're going to go to. And this is just some incremental thing. I think it was more like from a time bidder perspective, just saying, hey, we're not going to go to this trade show. We're going to use this budget for that. One interesting thing, though, because trade shows are still important, right? They're important for brand. And, I've sat on the other side of that table at a booth more times than I would like to admit over my illustrious career. And more often than not, it is a dubious spend. Uh, because you don't find that person, or you have a 5-minute conversation with that person. They're like, yeah, send me an email, call me. And then they just ghost you like they did before, right? It happens all the time. You don't get to shoot your shot at a trade show for the most part. One strategy, I'm shamelessly plugging here. One strategy for a time bidder firm is, let's say I'm going to a conference, right? Let's say I've already spent 5 figures on this conference, at least, right? Between the travel and the hotel and if it's a multi thing, or even if it's a day one, you're spending many thousands of pounds in all likelihood just to be there. Why not reach out to the attendees beforehand, at least the speakers who are announced? And if the organizer lets you know who's due to attend, even better. But for those people that you want to meet there, reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to be there. We'd be happy to donate £100 to your charity of choice if you'd come over to us during lunch or during the drinks break and just give us a half hour at that trade show in order to make sure that we're actually having a conversation with somebody that we want to have a conversation with at that time. It'll significantly increase the odds that you'll get that second follow-up meeting, and you'll be able to lay a much better foundation. You're already sinking all this money in. What's an extra £100? And again, you're showing you're the good guys and trying to say, hey, this is how we do business. We are about giving back. We're charitable. So that's just another kind of thing that we're now seeing, where people have creative uses of where you're basically turning charitable donations into a form of value exchange.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that we're almost at the end of this great convo. I have one last question for you, going back to, executive meetings and time and how to get their attention. Because you see, many of these things every day, you solve problems related to this topic. If you could leave the audience with one shift to make starting tomorrow, okay? In this world where exec attention is the currency, meetings are commoditized, what should the salesperson or CRO change? Their outreach, their meeting design, the offer they bring, or whatever else to really have and spend the valuable time with an exec.
So, I mean, obviously, I think Time to Give Network is the panacea for this. And the reason why Time to Give Network exists is because there's so few answers to that very valuable question. Um, I think you just got to get out there more. I think people need to go to more networking events. Even like, and you started this conversation talking about how it is not necessarily a good use of time, right? And there's so much time is wasted by people, with meetings that mean nothing. And even if you go out and you're networking, I mean, God, it happened to me last night. I was invited to an event where the CSR partner, and I was in a conversation that was going nowhere, but in the interest of politeness, it lasted way longer than it needed to. And that's hard, but it's got to be done. You just got to put in the hours. And I think a lot of salespeople don't put in the hours of even, and again, maybe it's a drinking culture here in the UK. I don't know, but just going to the pub and putting in the hours after hours, the social hours where even if you're going to waste a good amount of time and you'd rather be with your family or you'd rather be with your girlfriend or whatever it is, or your boyfriend, you still need to dedicate the time to the general face to face over drinks, ideally with more than one person. But even if it's one impactful person, just put in the time, and that is going to be your best chance of getting it. Obviously you want to rely on your outreach, and you want to rely on the fact that your marketing is going to be able to spin you up meetings. But the networking is about the hours and about the finding the time and the comfort level. I'd like to believe that most salespeople are pretty comfortable in that environment, right? So it's not about comfort, it's more about prioritization. And sadly, as the wall gets thicker and thicker and thicker from cold emails and cold in-mails and cold calls, as that wall gets thicker, you just got to go with the human touch and find those humans and get some out of work, or get together with other salespeople, and have them invite people, but just bring people together and put in the hours. Yeah.
That's a really good answer, and thank you for that, because you touch a really interesting topic to me. Is that, I don't know, probably in the last 10 years we have spent too much time optimizing the sales activities as a factory line. So we are doing everything in the hope of getting, I don't know, a KPI of to check something on a kind of scorecard, while indeed most of the time socialization has to be done just for the sake of doing it. And then at the end, something will come up. Andrew, thank you so much for, this time. I just want you to remind for one last time how the audience can find you on LinkedIn, social media, whatever, your
Yep.
company, and how can they be, updated with all the progresses you
Perfect.
made, even how they can get a job there.
Yeah. Hey, we would love to bring you on. Like I said, hey, because a lot of these sales guys already know the buyers, right? And a lot of these sales guys are also working for firms that would be well served signing up. So the website is www.timetogive.network. Time, the two is TO, so time is spelled out. We're on LinkedIn, obviously. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're approaching 2,000 followers now, which I'm pretty happy about. Again, in our little bootstrappy efforts. Obviously, I'm always happy to connect with salespeople on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time talking to executives. Spend a lot of time talking to charities. I spend a lot of time talking to product people. I always love talking to sales guys, though, right? Because I feel like I'm helping them out, and I feel like there's a certain empathy and sympathy, and we're all in it together kind of a vibe. So if I can help a salesperson, and that was really why I did this too, right? I want to help other salespeople because I had that struggle and I worried about my job, right? If I'm not like producing enough and I'm wasting all this time, well, yeah, now that starts getting personal. But yeah, so we do a lot of social media, and we're always happy, like I said, to bring people on, as ambassadors and other roles that I'd be happy to talk about.